I have exited Discovery. I'm a free agent.
What?
After years of whispers, rumors, and wild speculation, Richard Rawlings is finally ready to set the record straight, and what he is revealing is nothing short of jaw-dropping. He has been keeping a dark secret under wraps, and it is the missing piece that explains everything: the collapse of his marriages, the shocking fire sale of his beloved car collection, and the real story behind why Discovery suddenly cancelled his hit show. Now Rawlings has decided it is time to come clean, and when you hear what really went down during that $6 million legal battle, you will understand why he kept it hidden for so long. At 55, Richard Rawlings from Fast and Loud finally confirms the rumors, and it is messier, deeper, and way more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. The making of Richard Rawlings begins on March 30, 1969, in a working-class neighborhood of Fort Worth, Texas. Long before the fame, fortune, and fast cars, Richard's world already revolved around anything on four wheels. One of the first snapshots of his life shows a tiny boy proudly sitting in a pedal-powered Volkswagen Beetle, and for Richard, it was not just a toy, it was a sign of things to come. While other kids spent their Saturday mornings glued to cartoons, Richard had a very different schedule. At 3 in the morning, when the city was still fast asleep, he would be up and out, riding alongside his dad delivering newspapers. They would roll up the stacks, drive through dark empty streets, and toss papers onto driveways. After school, he would go out again for the afternoon edition, and on weekends, he was hustling even harder, riding his bike from house to collect payments. But what stuck with him most during all those runs was not just the work or the money, it was the cars. Richard noticed every single one. He knew exactly which house had what make, model, and year. Customers were often surprised by how much he knew, and Richard's answer was always simple: "I ride by your house twice a day most days of the week. How would I not know what is in your driveway?" His dad, who often juggled 2 or 3 jobs at once, always made sure he had one thing for himself: a car or a motorcycle. That single toy was his reward, and that lesson stuck with Richard. If you wanted something special, you had to earn it. By the age of 14, Richard had already saved enough from his paper routes to buy his very first car. It was 1983, and he rolled up in a green 1974 Mercury Comet. While most kids were daydreaming about getting their license at 16, Richard was already hitting the road, not legally, of course, but that did not slow him down one bit. That Comet was not just transportation, it was a statement. He became known for burning rubber in the school parking lot, doing donuts to show off what the car could do. His classmates still talk about it today. Even though the Comet was an ugly shade of green, Richard thought it was the coolest car ever made. Things did not slow down. By his senior year in 1987, he was already on his third car, a black 1977 Bandit Trans Am, a ride that looked straight out of Smokey and the Bandit. At Eastern Hills High School, Richard was not just the car guy who liked to show off, he was flipping cars too. He was buying, fixing, and selling vehicles before most teens even had part-time jobs. By graduation, he had flipped around 20 cars and made more money than most of his classmates. He was not guessing either. He had the eye for a good deal, knew how to tweak it just enough, and could always convince someone to pay more than he did. It was the beginning of everything that would come later. But Richard's ride was not without danger. In the early 90s, at just 22 years old, he had a near-death experience that could have changed everything. He was cruising through a rough part of Fort Worth in a 1965 Ford Mustang 2+2 Fastback, a collector's dream, when carjackers ambushed him. They tried to drag him out of the driver's seat, and Richard fought back. During the struggle, a bullet ripped through his shoulder and traveled down his left arm. He survived, and while most people might have walked away from car culture after something like that, for Richard, it only fueled his passion even more. Between 1988 and 1990, long before the tattoos, TV shows, or garage fame, Richard wore 3 different uniforms. He was a police officer, a firefighter, and a paramedic, all before he even turned 21. His dad used to tell him, "You get a good job with benefits, stay loyal, and retire with a gold watch." And at first, Richard listened. However, everything shifted in 1988. Richard was delivering Miller Lite to a local bar when a regular, who Richard thought was just another drunk, asked him what he planned to do with his life. Richard explained that he wanted to get into law enforcement but could not afford the police academy. The man looked at him and said, "Damn it, I am the mayor of So-and-so city." 17 days later, Richard was enrolled at the North Texas Police Academy. He served as a cop in Alvarado, then moved on to become a firefighter in Capel. He wore multiple hats and learned how to stay cool and collected when chaos broke loose, skills that would later become crucial in building his empire. The rise of Richard Rawlings and Gas Monkey Garage began when, by the time he hit 25, Rawlings knew he needed a change. So he sold everything he owned, bought a Jeep, and headed for California, hoping to start fresh. Back then, he was clean-cut, no tattoos, no piercings. But just 6 months later, he was back in Texas, broke, covered in tattoos, with pierced ears, and no Jeep to his name. It had been repossessed. He was crashing on his sister's couch, but that low point did not break him, it focused him. He realized he needed to build something of his own. That is when he launched Lincoln Press in 1999, a printing and advertising company in Dallas. Even though he had no background in printing, what he did understand was branding. To kick things off, he took out a $100,000 small business loan, and within just 5 years, Lincoln Press was booming. In fact, in 2004, he pulled off a wild stunt. He promised a Lamborghini Gallardo to the first client who spent $1 million with the company, and it worked. Business kept growing, and eventually, he sold the company. That sale gave him the money he needed to chase his real dream, cars. When Richard Rawlings first launched Gas Monkey Garage in Dallas back in 2002, it was not some polished high-end shop. It was tiny, rough, and did not even have running water or air conditioning. The whole thing was built using the money he made from selling Lincoln Press. Rawlings had the passion but not the resources. Still, he believed in the dream. So he and his small crew packed up and hit the road, traveling to car shows, trade events, and rallies across the country, doing whatever it took to get the name Gas Monkey out there. Then in May 2007, Rawlings and his buddy Dennis Collins set their sights on something legendary, breaking the Cannonball Run record. The original record was set in 1979 at 32 hours and 51 minutes, the time it took to drive from New York City to Los Angeles. For nearly 30 years, nobody had beaten it. But on May 12, 2007, Rawlings and Collins decided it was time. They skipped the planned Bull Run rally route from Montreal to Key West and aimed straight for the record instead. They drove a modified Ferrari 550 Maranello outfitted with extra fuel tanks to cut down on stops. Leaving Manhattan under the cover of night, they pushed across the country, and 31 hours and 59 minutes later, they pulled into the Portofino Inn in Redondo Beach. They had done it. They broke a record that had stood for 28 years, averaging 87.6 miles per hour across 2,811 miles of open road. Of course, not everyone believed it at first. Some people questioned the route they took or compared it to the original Cannonball runs. But despite the controversy, their achievement stood tall. It was bold, it was dangerous, and it was real enough to catch the attention of none other than Jay Leno. And that nod meant more than most people realized, because Jay Leno is not just a car guy, he is the car guy. His garage is packed with hundreds of classic and rare vehicles. His knowledge is deep, and his respect in the automotive world is massive. So when Leno recognized Rawlings for breaking the Cannonball Run record, it was not just praise, it was a powerful stamp of approval. And at that time, Rawlings needed it. Between 2002 and 2012, getting Gas Monkey Garage off the ground was anything but easy. He poured every last dollar he had into it, working out of a place with no air conditioning, no running water, and barely enough tools to get by. Finding good mechanics was a constant struggle. Tracking down the right parts felt like a never-ending battle, and just keeping the lights on was a fight in itself. Every project was a huge risk. Every customer had to be earned. During those tough years, Rawlings also started pitching an idea for a TV show. He did not want to just reach gearheads, he wanted to bring car restoration to a wider audience, families, kids, anyone who liked a good story with some horsepower behind it. But networks were not convinced. They thought the idea was too niche, too risky. So while he waited for a break, Rawlings kept grinding, hitting more car shows, more meetups, and more face-to-face events, slowly but surely building a brand with real muscle behind it. And when Discovery Channel finally said yes in 2012, Gas Monkey Garage was not some unknown name. It already carried serious weight in the car community. When Fast and Loud debuted on June 6, 2012, no one could have guessed it would turn a simple Dallas garage into an international sensation. At the heart of it all was Richard Rawlings. Before the cameras rolled, Rawlings was just the guy behind Gas Monkey Garage. But once the show became a hit, he was thrust into the spotlight, with his face recognizable across over 200 countries. The success was not limited to the US. Fast and Loud was translated into 13 languages, quickly turning Rawlings into a global brand. The premise of the show was straightforward. Rawlings and his crew would hunt down old forgotten cars, often in horrible condition, and bring them back to life. After a little elbow grease, they would shine them up and sell them for a tidy profit. However, what truly made Fast and Loud stand out was not just the cars, it was the vibe. Unlike other shows that focused heavily on drama or niche audiences, Rawlings wanted Fast and Loud to be something everyone could enjoy. He described it as something both kids and grandparents could enjoy. His goal was not to make just another car show, he wanted it to be fun, fast-paced, and accessible. And it worked. Viewers were not just drawn to the builds but the contagious energy in every episode. But Rawlings did not stop there. He saw the potential to build something bigger. Thanks to the success of the show, he expanded beyond the garage and launched a range of businesses, from gas monkey restaurants to tequila, vodka, clothing lines, and energy drinks. The garage was now the foundation for an entire empire. By 2020, even though the show had wrapped up after 16 seasons, Rawlings's brand was stronger than ever. What made Fast and Loud so successful was Rawlings's approach, which he called his cash money formula. The strategy was simple: buy smart, sell smarter. Rawlings traveled all over the country seeking out classic cars that needed restoration. He would often close deals on the spot, carrying stacks of cash to get sellers to say yes immediately. His famous saying was, "You can always buy a $10,000 car for $5,000 if you have it in your pocket." And this wasn't just some TV catchphrase, it was his real strategy. One of the standout moments of this formula was when Rawlings bought a Dodge Challenger for a little over $40,000. After sinking $77,000 into restoring it, the car was flipped for $150,000, earning a massive $73,000 profit on one deal. This wasn't luck, it was savvy spending, a sharp eye for potential, and an understanding of what buyers wanted. Another key to the show's success was Rawlings's fearless approach to risk. He wasn't afraid to buy cars that others wouldn't touch, vehicles with rust, frame damage, or years of neglect. Even his team sometimes questioned his choices, but Rawlings had a knack for seeing the value where others saw scrap. A perfect example of this was a supercar Rawlings bought for $400,000. Despite serious mechanical issues and a history of problems with its previous owner, the Gas Monkey team turned it around, and it sold for a hefty profit. These high-risk ventures became part of the show's DNA. It wasn't just about making money, it was about the drama behind the builds. Every car had its own story, and each restoration was a journey filled with obstacles. Not every car turned a profit, and not every build went according to plan, but that was part of the appeal. It showed the real risks behind the rewards and gave viewers an authentic glimpse into the car restoration business. As Fast and Loud grew in popularity, it became one of Discovery Channel's biggest hits, running for 8 years filled with wild road trips, flips, and builds. By season 4, the show was hitting its stride, with tight deadlines and unexpected challenges creating suspense that kept fans hooked. But in 2020, Rawlings made a bold move. On the Joe Rogan Experience, he revealed that he had ended his partnership with Discovery. The reason was his lack of control. Rawlings wanted creative freedom and didn't want to be tied down by restrictive contracts. Leaving the network was a gamble, but it also opened up new doors. Since then, Rawlings has continued to build his empire through YouTube, new media projects, and the ongoing success of Gas Monkey Garage. Richard Rawlings and his Gas Monkey empire were just getting started. Richard Rawlings had already made a name for himself in the automotive world, but in 2013, he decided it was time to shift gears and take his brand way beyond just cars and engines. That September, he launched the very first Gas Monkey Bar and Grill in Northwest Dallas. Built on the site of the old Firewater Bar and Grill, this massive 19,000 square foot spot wasn't just a restaurant, it was part live music venue, part bar, and 100% pure attitude. Designed to hold up to 1,200 people, Rawlings made sure it wasn't just the size that impressed. He brought in some serious talent to run the place. Alex Mendanza, who had managed the House of Blues in Las Vegas, stepped in as general manager, while David Hollister took over the food side as culinary manager. And this place didn't open quietly. 2 days before the official launch, the American rock band Old 97s cranked up the energy, playing the very first live show and setting the tone for everything that was to come. By March 2014, Rawlings was ready for more. He opened a second Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, this time inside Terminal D at the Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, one of the busiest airports in the country. It was a smart move. Travelers could now grab some great food, catch live music, and get a taste of the Gas Monkey brand before they even left the terminal. Rawlings even teased plans for a third location outside the Dallas-Fort Worth area. He wasn't just testing the waters, he was building a full-on empire where car culture, music, and nightlife collided. Then in October 2014, Rawlings leveled up again. Right across the street from the original bar and grill, he opened Gas Monkey Live, a huge 38,000 square foot concert venue built for big shows and bigger crowds. Before Rawlings got his hands on it, the space had been home to Toby Keith's I Love This Bar and Grill. but Rawlings transformed it into a high-energy, full-scale music venue ready to rock 3,000 guests at a time. On opening night, punk rock legend Social Distortion tore up the stage, kicking off a string of huge acts and high-profile events. One of the biggest moments came just a month later in November 2014, when Motley Crue performed a free concert at Gas Monkey Live as part of their All Bad Things Must End tour. The event, called Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey, wasn't open to just anyone, only Dodge vehicle owners got in. But it wasn't just about the music. The event also showcased Dodge's latest powerhouses, including the Charger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Hellcat. It was a night of speed, sound, and pure spectacle. Gas Monkey Live quickly became a go-to spot for private events, VIP parties, and corporate functions too. With green rooms and flexible spaces, it was perfect for more than just concerts. But even with all that momentum, tough times hit. By May 2020, Gas Monkey Live had to shut its doors. Financial pressure from the COVID-19 pandemic made it impossible to keep going. And with that, a bold chapter in Rawlings's live entertainment journey came to an end. Still, the man wasn't slowing down. Back in 2014, the same year Gas Monkey Live opened, Rawlings had also become the national spokesperson for Dodge. Suddenly, his face was everywhere. He starred in commercials, cruising behind the wheel and hyping up Dodge's performance and style. Already familiar to millions from Fast and Loud, Rawlings was now helping sell cars across the entire country. One of the biggest highlights from this partnership was that epic Dodge Rocks Gas Monkey concert at his very own venue, an absolutely perfect crossover of his love for cars, music, and big brands. All rolled into one unforgettable night, the deal gave Dodge direct access to car fanatics while catapulting Rawlings into a whole new level of national fame, and he was not done yet. In 2019, Rawlings made another move, this time diving into the energy drink world. But instead of starting a company from scratch, he played it smart. He licensed out the Gas Monkey brand, keeping full control over the image while avoiding the massive costs of production. Gas Monkey Energy hit the market with two flavors, regular and light, both built around Rawlings's signature themes, speed, power, and excitement. By January 2025, they added a third flavor, tropical. It packed a bold blend of mango, passion fruit, pineapple, lemon, and honey. Staying true to Rawlings's bold, fast, and clean style, the drinks avoided high-fructose corn syrup and artificial additives. Gas Monkey Energy did not just sit on convenience store shelves. It showed up at major motorsports events like the Indianapolis 500 and NH races, giving fans a literal taste of the Gas Monkey lifestyle. Richard Rawlings has always been the kind of guy who lives life with the pedal slammed straight to the floor. Fast cars, faster deals, roaring engines, and a booming TV career, that is the Richard we all know. But when it came to his personal life, well, that road had a lot more bumps, potholes, and sharp turns than anyone expected. Before Fast and Loud and Gas Monkey Garage turned him into a full-blown celebrity, Richard was just a regular guy trying to find his place in the world. And in 1993, he thought he found someone to take the ride with him. That year, he married Karen K. Grames. No fame, no fans, no red carpets, just two young people figuring it out. But as it turned out, that dream was short-lived. Less than a year later, in 1994, they were already divorced. It ended almost as quickly as it started. Karen never stepped into the spotlight, and Richard did not really talk much about that first marriage. Their time together stayed way under the radar, never really making headlines. But looking back, it was the first sign that balancing ambition and a relationship might be way harder than Richard expected. Even then, without the fame and pressure, his marriage could not survive the race to success. Fast forward a few years to 1999, and Richard was ready to take another shot at love. This time it was with Suzanne Marie Merrill. They did not exactly ease into it either. They tied the knot in classic Vegas style at the same time Gas Monkey Garage was starting to pick up steam. Richard's dreams were finally coming to life, but dreams do not always play nicely with relationships. With the business growing faster than ever and Richard constantly traveling, the cracks started to show. It was not that they did not love each other, but life was moving at 200 miles per hour, and eventually something had to give. After 10 years together, they finally called it quits in 2009. And for most couples, that would have been the final chapter. But Richard and Suzanne, their story was far from over. In 2015, 6 years after they split, they found themselves giving it another go. This time, it was all about second chances, and they rekindled their relationship in sunny Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. It looked like something out of a romantic comedy. Two people, older, wiser, realizing they still had something special. But as much as we all love a good comeback story, this one did not stick. By March 2019, Richard had to break the news to his fans. This time, he went straight to Twitter to get ahead of the rumors. On March 11, 2019, he posted a message explaining that since media outlets like TMZ were already reporting on it, he wanted to be the one to tell his fans first. Always direct, Richard kept it real, saying the decision was mutual, and after more than 20 years of being on and off, they knew it was time to move on for good. The second divorce moved quickly. Suzanne walked away with a $300,000 financial settlement, paid in 2 parts. She also kept her Mercedes SL 450 Roadster, which honestly sounds like a pretty sweet consolation prize. Even though the marriage did not last, Richard stayed respectful, saying they shared something real during their time together. 2 marriages, 2 divorces, same person. It really showed just how complicated it was to balance a booming career with a stable personal life. And just when you thought Richard might pump the brakes on love for a while, a new chapter started. Enter Katarina Day Sun. And let us just say, this time the story came with a whole lot more sparkle. Katarina was already pretty well known in certain circles. She had previously been married to Darwin Day Sun, a Texas billionaire who sold his company, Affiliated Computer Services, to Xerox for an eye-popping $6 billion. For years, Katarina lived that ultra-exclusive lifestyle. Think private jets, massive estates, super yachts like Apogee, and all the luxury you could possibly imagine. But in 2019, everything shifted. After Richard split from Suzanne, he and Katarina started dating, and things moved fast. Not long after they got together, Richard decided to go all in. On August 17, 2019, he proposed at the dreamy Bulum Resort in Mexico. And of course, he made it unforgettable, filling the beach with rose petals and posting about it online, where he told the world he had found his soulmate. It was the kind of over-the-top grand romantic gesture that you would expect from Richard Rawlings, but the surprises did not stop there. Less than a year later, on June 28, 2020, they tied the knot in Key West, Florida. Now they had planned a big fancy wedding in Greece, but thanks to COVID-19 flipping everyone's lives upside down, they had to cancel. Instead, they opted for a small intimate ceremony, and honestly it seemed to make the day even more special. Katarina's life had completely transformed. She left behind the billionaire world of boardrooms and super yachts and stepped into a new reality life with a reality TV star. It was a huge shift, but if you ask anyone who's seen them together, it looks like the perfect fit. From chasing dreams to chasing love, Richard Rawlings' story shows that while the road might get rough, he never stops moving forward, whether it's in business, in love, or in life. Richard Rawlings' legal battle and new car collection began in June 2018 when the custom car world was rocked by an unexpected bombshell. Gas Monkey Bar and Grill, the famous Dallas hotspot, filed a jaw-dropping $6 million defamation lawsuit against none other than its own founder, Richard Rawlings. Fans and followers of the Gas Monkey brand couldn't believe it. The lawsuit accused Rawlings of intentionally trying to break away from his business partners with deliberate and deceitful actions to dodge his contracts. The legal document, a hefty 47 pages, read like a dramatic expose detailing how things started to fall apart as early as 2013, even before the bar had even opened. Former employee Tim Hinkhouse didn't hold back in his email from 2013, claiming Rawlings treated construction workers horribly. He even compared him to a spoiled 13-year-old. Things got so tense that Rawlings was reportedly banned from the construction site. It was a moment that set the tone for the explosive fallout to come. When the bar finally opened, the drama didn't stop. According to the lawsuit, Rawlings would show up uninvited, causing chaos by disrupting staff and trying to hijack decision-making. The atmosphere became toxic and the team was already fed up. By 2015, things hit a boiling point. Rawlings fired off an email to Daniel Flighty, the bar's managing member, accusing the team of misplacing crucial financial records. Flighty quickly responded, offering to let Rawlings come check the records for himself, but Rawlings refused, instead firing back, "I don't believe the records existed at all. That's a serious accusation suggesting theft or fraud, and the legal ramifications could have been huge." Flighty shot back, reminding him, "You've always been welcome to audit the books." That email would later become a key piece of evidence. Rawlings would later apologize, blaming it all on alcohol, but the damage had already been done. The lawsuit argued that Rawlings' antics scared off vendors and business partners, severely damaging the bar's reputation and making it almost impossible to keep the business afloat. But the drama didn't end there. In 2017, when someone showed interest in buying the Gas Monkey Bar brand, Rawlings stepped in once again, making even more accusations of financial mismanagement and ruining the deal. This incident also became central to the lawsuit. Then in 2019, Rawlings wasn't done. He struck back hard. On March 28, he filed a $1 million countersuit for copyright infringement, claiming the bar had continued using the Gas Monkey name and logos long after their agreement had expired. His team argued that by late 2018 the licensing rights had expired, but the bar kept using the brand anyway. Rawlings didn't stop there. He accused the bar of using his brand to promote lewd and sexually suggestive events, which of course hurt his image and his intellectual property. A month earlier, Rawlings had sent a cease and desist letter demanding they stop using his brand, giving them 10 days to comply. When they ignored him, he filed the countersuit claiming a $1 million loss in licensing revenue and brand value. By this time, rumors had been swirling that the bar was in serious financial trouble. One of its sister venues, Gas Monkey Live, had shut down. Some speculated that Rawlings was distancing himself from a sinking ship, protecting his name while the bar went down in flames. The public battle became a full-blown spectacle, grabbing the attention of car enthusiasts and legal experts alike. Meanwhile, Rawlings was busy doing his own thing. After Fast and Loud ended, he launched a podcast called Monkey Trap, using it as a new way to engage with fans and bring on guests from all walks of life. One memorable guest was Cord Newman, a Hollywood stuntman known for setting himself on fire. During an episode, the podcast mixed behind-the-scenes stories with high-energy interviews, keeping Rawlings firmly in the public eye. But then in September 2023, Rawlings made a move that sent shockwaves through the car world. He auctioned off nearly 30 cars from his personal collection through Bring a Trailer, raking in an eye-popping $1.8 million. Among the prized vehicles was a 1962 Chevy Corvette that sold for $60,000, a 1965 Ford Mustang Fastback Code that fetched $75,000, and a rare 1993 Toyota Supra that brought in a staggering $121,000, making it the star of the auction. Rawlings explained that he was ready to move away from beer budget cars and focus on high-end European models. At the same time, he auctioned off a Gas Monkey garage experience for charity, raising $16,500 for the Gas Monkey Foundation. With cash in hand and space cleared out, Rawlings began to rebuild his collection, this time focusing on Ferraris, Lamborghinis, and vintage European cars, particularly those from the 1970s and 1980s. One of the standout moments came during a trip to Ireland, where Rawlings picked up 5 Ferrari Testarossas. One of them had been converted into an electric vehicle, which caused quite a stir at SEMA 2023. By early 2024, Rawlings had already poured over $1 million into his new direction. This wasn't just a change in what he was driving, it was a total reinvention of himself. From messy lawsuits to an incredible collection of Ferraris, Rawlings's story continues to unfold. Love him or hate him, one thing is for sure: Richard Rawlings knows exactly how to stay in the spotlight and keep everyone talking. Don't miss out on the latest updates. Subscribe now, hit that like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Catch you in the next video.